Hey y'all, this is Phil. As promised, I'm doing a vlog about pseudonyms. I say as promised because I'm working with a newcoming writer named Nicole Young on a series of children's books. She's done blogging and volunteerism for a while, but this is the first time she's actually published a book, and so I'm helping her out. And we were having a back and forth conversation, text message conversation yesterday about pseudonyms, and she called me an expert. That's neat. That's something I've been saying for a while. That once you write a book, you're an instant expert. People start looking to you for advice because when you're getting ready to write a book, or when you've just published, you research things. I mean, you do without thinking about it. I mean, I haven't specifically gone into the area of pseudonyms and research, but I do know a lot about it. And see, that's what makes you become an expert, is knowing a lot about something. So I'm gonna talk about pseudonyms. When I first started putting out books, 4 or 5 years ago, I decided to use my middle name instead of my surname, so it's Philip Michael. And this reasoning came from something from my friend Grace. I don't even remember what her given last name is because her last name is Bridges, was a pseudonym, but she now owns her own publishing company in New Zealand, where, I just referred to her as Grace Bridges because I don't remember what her last name is, and her advice was she got the name Bridges because it was a form of her middle name, Bridget. So I thought, and I guess I'll probably use Philip Michaels. I use Michaels whenever people say on the phone, "What's your last name?" I don't like Michaels because we're not supposed to get our real last name. But I don't. I decided not to stick with that because it just seemed so foreign to me. So when I came out with there was the booklet, When a Geeky Guy Grows Up, where I used Philip Michael on the bottom of that, and it still didn't really. So when I put together an actual book, Levels of Geekdom, I said I used Philip Flint. I used my full name, aka Whistlin' Phil. Because Whistlin' Phil is a good nickname. I like that nickname, and I've used it on everything. Online and in publishing, I use it also. I decided to use my real given name on most of my books, and Whistlin' Phil as a nickname on more whimsical books. Like, I'm going to illustrate at least the first couple for Nicole, and I'm going to use Whistlin' Phil, because it's just a nickname. Now, there is the subject of creating an entirely different name, one that is not your given name in any shape or form. And when this happens, you have a tendency of creating a different personality, because it's like you can write in a different tone. Now, probably not with everybody, and I can't say I know a lot about the Richard Bachman, Stephen King thing. He's got a thing going. I don't know a lot about it, but I know a little bit about it, and that's what happened with him. Because Richard Bachman is not a real person, never was a real person. It started out, it was just a pseudonym for Stephen King. It's just another name. And writing under that name, he kind of developed his own voice, his own tone, because every writer has kind of a tone. And since I don't know a lot about it, I don't know what the difference is between Stephen King and Richard Bachman, but he had his own tone, and he used that pseudonym for so long, he produced his own personality. And when Stephen King wanted to make a name for himself, he killed off Richard Bachman. He actually created this elaborate Richard Bachman had a heart attack and died at the age of 58. Or, I don't know exactly what it was, but he created a death. So now it's common knowledge among Stephen King fans that Richard Bachman was was just a pseudonym. It's common, just like Samuel Clemens and Mark Twain. We know they're the same person, and it's common to know the same person. But for years, nobody knew. Now there was two books that came out, Regulators, and I don't remember what the other one was called, but they came out at the same time, and it was Stephen King and Richard Bachman. And one was by Richard Bachman, and one by Stephen King. And it was considered like the lost Bachman, the unpublished Bachman book or something. And they weren't the same storyline, but the two books had the same characters, some of the same characters in them, and they didn't go together, but it was almost like when we read them, they were side by side at the same time, and you could see differences in writing style, because Stephen King created his own personality, and that's kind of where it's cautionary. It's cautionary because, see, for me, I could see myself doing that. I mean, that's creepy. Creating that person, that's just creepy. So I guess my advice for newcomers with regards to pseudonyms, unless you're popular, like Stephen King could do it, use a name close to your own. If not, your given name. I mean, there's a reason why not to use your given name. Pros and cons, of course. You won't be searchable. If you want to remain private, if you use a name, if I said, what is it, Philip Michael, it would have been a lot harder to find me online, to, not necessarily Google, but, I did a search and stuff like that. But since I've used my actual last name, it's conceivable that people could stalk me. I mean, find out where I live and stuff. So you might want to use a made-up name for that reason, to remain a little bit private. So I don't know. It's up to the author, what the author really chooses to do. But these are some issues that surround pseudonyms and pseudonymery. It's like a stage name for performers. You gotta stick with it if you become big. I mean, like, if a book that I had used my name Philip Michael had become popular, it would have been a lot harder for me to come out with Philip Flint as an author, because it's like a new person, So it's like you make a name for yourself, and you've got to stick with that name. When you're looked at as an expert, I mentioned that. I might be someday addressed by the name that I'm known by. If it's Whistling Phil, then if I'm addressed as an expert on a TV show or a radio show or something, they'll say Whistling Phil more likely than my given name. So it's whatever's on your book that you're known for. So it's a big deal. It's a big choice, and we actually have a choice. When we're babies and we're given a name, we don't have a choice. But as writers, we have a choice. We can choose what we're going to be called.